What is up, guys, and welcome in to the Lou Sports Talk podcast. I am Ethan Hannaford. He is Brandon Big Papi Gallegos. Brandon, go ahead and get that microphone unmuted, and then we can get going. There it is. Brandon Big Papi Gallegos, the first episode of the Lou Sports Talk podcast on STL Sports Central. We are so excited that all of the content here for the Lou Sports Talk podcast from this point on will also be on STL Sports Central. Cannot wait. If you're looking, you're saying, well, this is the first time that I'm seeing this here, but it's episode 70. Yep. Simple math would tell you that there were 69 episodes before this that were recorded somewhere else. Up to this point, we have been audio only on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and those are still there. If you're on the go and you can't afford, you're not able to watch, that's still an option. Be sure to go and check those out as well. But we are up in the game. We are super excited to continue our partnership with STL Sports Central and now be on their YouTube channel. So before we go ahead and we dive into today's subject, which is going to be a continued preview of this upcoming trade deadline for the St. Louis Cardinals. And you see the title right there. It is right there, right above us there. Ryan Helsley, is he going to be traded? Obviously, would be likely the biggest name that the Cardinals are shopping here at the upcoming deadline if they do choose to sell. But there's some other names as well. So we're going to be diving into who are realistic pieces that the Cardinals could be selling, perhaps adding at this trade deadline. But it looks like, at least as of now, based off of the most previous series out in the desert, that the Cardinals are going to be selling. And the market has not set yet, but it's all moving out in that direction. But before we get into that conversation, let us tell you a little bit about ourselves and how this all got started. Brandon, Big Papi, go ahead and give your intro to the people.
You know, I started with just an incredible start there. You having to tell me to get off a mute is the exact definition of our friendship on air and off air. Just Ethan giving me advice to do very everyday things. How you would define our friendship and this podcast. No, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. If this is your first time, welcome to episode 70. Here's the thing. I mean, Ethan is the pro. He is your guy, and I am simply here to not be a distraction. But no, I love hockey. Hockey is definitely my lean. But we're in St. Louis, so it is baseball nation for sure. So I love to talk me some baseball. Grown up a St. Louis kid, a little bit out in the sticks of Washington, Mo. Shout out Franklin County. Yeah, Ethan has asked me to be a part of this a long time ago. What, 3 years now, right? Back in our Lindenwood days.
Spring of 2022.
Wow. Yeah. So it's been a fun ride, and I'm excited. And here's the thing. I don't know if they asked for it or not, but they can see our faces.
That they can, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, it's a tragedy, and I'm thankful we don't have a comment section right here that's live. I'm thankful that we're recording because I just feel like Big Papi here would get roasted.
There he is, Brandon Big Papi Gallegos. If you're wondering where Big Papi came from, honestly, I don't even know. I think it just kind of started when we first started recording, and it had a nice ring to it with the last name Gallegos, and it's kind of stuck ever since, hasn't it, Brandon?
Yeah, Ethan, you're forgetting to mention too, I was pretty fat in college. So I was about 40 pounds heavier, ate Taco Bell at least 5 nights a week. And
Stop.
Let's talk about the real origin. Let's give them the true origin story here, okay? All right. No,
Brandon Big Papi Gallegos, that is him right there. Me personally, also went to Lindenwood University. That's where Brandon and I met. I've had the opportunity of doing some really cool things in my first couple of years within media, aspiring sports broadcaster, trying to work my way into the business. Was the St. Louis Cardinals radio booth broadcast assistant for 2 seasons. Just so happens that those 2 seasons happen to be 2 of the worst years in the last 30 years of Cardinals baseball. Some broadcasters would tell you that they would tell you that was my fault. I would not necessarily agree. I would say there was some other things going on that perhaps contributed to that. But Yeah, so 2 years with the St. Louis Cardinals as their booth assistant. I had the opportunity to sit and work along with some of the best in the business. Also spent a good year and a half as KMOX's clubhouse reporter. I had the opportunity to be around a lot of players, the manager a lot, continue to learn the business and get the behind the scenes as to what it looks like specifically for the St. Louis Cardinals. I still work over with KMOX and Odyssey as well as 97.1 FM Talk. Work with all of those stations right now, primarily as a producer. And then I also broadcast for Lindenwood Sports, primarily Lindenwood Football, some other broadcast outlets as well. And I've been contributing here to STL Sports Central since the very beginning. Was on one of their, I don't know if I was on the first one, I was on one of the very first Blues Central post-game shows. And if you are familiar with STL Sports Central, then you have probably seen me around a little bit. Brandon also planning on getting in the mix here on as a contributor with STL Sports Central here in the upcoming Blues season. That is definitely his strength, and he's been a great help and a great assistant in just learning the game and growing in the game. So he's going to be a great addition, and he's going to be able to provide a lot of really interesting information from someone that has seen hockey from on the ice. So super excited that you guys are going to be able to be hearing his thoughts and his content, especially as the Blues, a team that are going to have some excitement for them coming into this upcoming season. So yeah, my strength being more so baseball, but definitely we have the ability to talk them all, and we're excited that you guys are here being a part of it with us as well. Did I miss anything, Brandon? Is there anything that I missed?
No, I don't think so. If you want to give them the last four of your social, that could be beneficial to some. Other than that, I say we get on with the show.
I think that's really the only thing I possibly could have added. The only other thing I'll mention is that if you go back and you check us out on our previous episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcast, you'll quickly learn that we have had quite a few solid guests on throughout our time hosting episodes. That would include even in the most recent weeks here. Chip Carey was our guest last week's episode. Katie Wu the week before that. Mike Claiborne has joined us several times. Matt Pauley, Lynn Worthy, Ricky Horton. I mean, the list goes on and on. Luke Korak. I mean, we're very blessed to have some excellent guests, yeah. And we hope to continue with that here in our video podcasting as well. So while it is just Brandon and I this week, be on the lookout for guests in upcoming episodes as well. Brandon rotates every other week with our other co-host, which is Dylan Hampel. You'll see him next week and get to learn a little bit about him as well with our Lou Sports Talk podcast group. So without further ado, we're going to take a quick pause. When we return, we're going to dive into how the Cardinals exactly should be navigating this upcoming trade deadline. You are watching the Lou Sports Talk podcast on STL Sports Central.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lou Sports Talk podcast. If you are listening to us, welcome back. If you're watching, great to have you. Ethan, it's time to talk a little Cardinals baseball. And here's the thing, I know, just a little bit over a week ago, the Cardinals, they limped, right? It was one of those kind of limps where you only have one that you're kind of walking on, you're just kind of barely putting some weight on that left foot. That was the Cardinals into the All-Star break, 51-46 record. They get swept down in Arizona in the desert. A lot of emphasis had been put on the first 10 games of the second half. So going 0-3, not a great start, okay? A large majority of those runs were given up by starting pitchers. It's not a secret. You didn't have to watch the game long to notice it. I tuned in the most for the Palante game, and it was unfortunate. He was leaving stuff up in the middle of the zone. Here's the interesting part: the trade deadline coming up July 31st. just around the corner. We're recording now on the 22nd. You had conversations from the Cardinals front office. So you had some press, be able to ask some questions. And here's the question. Did that sweep show who you are? Did it show your true colors as a seller? And so I'll ask you, was this series enough to push the Cardinals to the selling corner? What do you think about that, Ethan?
It's hard to give a 100% for certain answer,
Yeah.
but it should have been. I don't think that the Cardinals had the same mindset that myself or a lot of fans did going into the All-Star break to the start of the second half, and that was that right now you have to convince us that we should buy. I think that was more so the mindset going in for a lot of fans, a lot of people, myself included. Now, that doesn't mean that if you are to sell off a couple of pieces, you can't still be in the mix or also add something. It doesn't mean that. But if anything, these 3 games told you a lot about where the Cardinals are. They just came out flat. No excuses whatsoever for the way that they played. The starting pitching was pathetic in Arizona. The lineup was not good. It was an extremely disappointing series. When you look at, I think the All-Star break gave fans an opportunity to kind of forget about how ugly it had been in the probably 12 games prior, I'd say 12 or so.
Yeah.
Coming off a really poor series against the Atlanta Braves, a team that is well under 500. I know that they still have a great lineup, but you have to be able to win series right against teams like that, and the Cardinals weren't able to. So you were, I think that fans allowed for the All-Star break to kind of reset them a little bit and say, okay, like, let's see what happens here. Not all fans, but some. Let's see what happens here, and let's see if you can make things interesting in the first 10 before you get to the deadline. And the Cardinals just played flat-footed, and they stunk. They did not play well in the desert. It was extremely disappointing. And you've put yourself in a situation, right, where you're playing the Colorado Rockies. You win Monday night's game, but let's keep in mind that the Colorado Rockies are on pace to have the worst season in Major League Baseball modern era history.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time for us?
Modern era history, the worst season in Major League Baseball history. They have won 24 of, I believe, are they at 100 games yet? They're right around 100 games, if I believe so. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. Their guy that they're throwing tonight at an ERA that was at 9. I mean, yes, they are 24-76 as we record right now. So this is a team that, right, if the Cardinals are to sweep them, how much do you take from that? How much do you take from that, right? I know there's a big series coming up against the team that you're chasing in the wild card standings in the San Diego Padres. If the Cardinals won 7 straight, maybe I'm considering. If they absolutely obliterate the San Diego Padres and the starting pitching looks phenomenal, then I'm okay. Maybe the wheels are starting to churn. I'm starting to feel it a little bit, catch that fever of, okay, this team is once again showing the roller coaster off of sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's really bad. So I'm not going to say it's completely 100% that they have convinced me that they need to sell, but it would take a lot to convince me that they need to sell because you look at this team right now, you look at how the starting pitching has been the past, month?
Yeah.
Does it convince you that they're going to be able to overcome some of these struggles, right? Are they going to be able to overcome and take over some of the teams that are ahead of them? I mean, the Cubs are how many games? 8, 9 games ahead of them now? I mean, the Brewers are tied with the Cubs or maybe ahead of the Cubs now. I mean, it's not just one team you're chasing now in the division. I think the division kiss it goodbye. But right, you look at the wild card standings, and I just don't see the Cardinals being able to have consistent enough starting pitching that they're going to be able to compete. Not with Miles Michaelis and Eric Freddy still in the rotation. And, you look at this Cardinals rotation, and it just has not been good enough. And the highs and lows of this season, in large part, right, have been parallel with the starting rotations, times where they've been really good and times where they've really struggled. So I can get into a couple of numbers on that in a minute. But yeah, right now it's going to take a lot in the next 6 days or whatever it is, 6 games for the Cardinals to convince me that they should be buyers.
So with my hockey background, I mean, it's a known fact. I mean, you've heard this, Ethan. You get in and you have a chance to win the whole thing. So I would say I lean that way. You're 8.5 back of the division. You're right. Kiss a goodbye. That it's not going to happen. 3.5 back from the wild card. As a guy who, look, I get it. Expanded playoffs. Your stereotypical baseball guys don't like that, aka somebody who's going to be on the show next week, aka Dylan Hample. You have those traditional guys that don't like the expanded playoffs. But to me, I mean, I think back a Diamondback Rangers World Series. I mean, would we have that without a hot wild card team? What do you say to those people then that say, look, on paper, this team's probably not a World Series contender, but in the playoffs, you never know? Is it just as simple as it's not going to happen to you, or do you not believe in the wild card magic, Ethan?
We know that soft selling is a thing and it exists. And I'm not saying that the Cardinals right now are the Detroit Tigers at this point of last year, but the Detroit Tigers soft sold and they caught fire. I mean, their odds to make the playoffs as of this point last year, I mean, had to be extremely low. And a year later, look at them. They gave some of their young guys the opportunity. They sold off on some pieces, got some pieces back, and now look at them. They're one of the best teams in baseball, if not the best team in baseball, or at least were in the first half. So I'm not saying that you can't soft sell and still potentially be in, but when you compare, right, when you look at the expiring contracts that they have, the main one is Ryan Helsley. Phil Maton and Steven Matz are the 3 pieces that you look at and you say, yeah, these are guys that definitely could be a big part of the seller's market. When you look at those 3 pieces, it's none of them are going to be a part of the future. I mean, let me say this. I would be extremely surprised if any of them are a part of the future. The Cardinals have a lot of young talent in the bullpen currently and that have been a part of the bullpen this year where there just hasn't been enough room for them. I'm not saying that anyone has the quality of stuff that Ryan Helsley has, but when you look at a guy like that had the season that he had in 2024, where he accrued Cy Young votes, where he was the National League reliever of the year, and while it hasn't been nearly as good of a year, at a time like this, right, where teams are desperate for bullpen help, I'm saying that the potential return of a guy like that in Ryan Helsley is greater than the potential of making the playoffs. Potentially, you win it, you get in and you see what happens, or even giving those young guys a taste of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because that is something, and I've mentioned that on previous podcasts here on STL Sports Central, where we saw it from the Blues this past year. The difference is, right, is that the pieces that the Blues were looking to sell out on, potentially, right, that there was talk, they were under team control for a long time. They didn't have to sell anyone. Most of them, I should say. Most of them. And the return that they would have gotten for some of those pieces probably wouldn't have changed anything big time. It's a different story for the Cardinals. When you look at what Ryan Helsley and some of the demand could be on this market, Ryan Helsley could be the most desired relief pitcher on this market. I think he will. I'm saying it right now. I don't think that's even a hot take. So you look at what some of the returns were in 2024, and they were really good for starting pitching, for relief pitching, especially high-end relief pitching that can close out games for you. So I think that when you look at the pros and cons, the pros of moving on from guys like that outweigh the cons. And like I said, there's young pieces still to where, you give them opportunities. I'm not saying it's going to be silky smooth and it's going to be just as good as it was at times, in large part with Ryan Helsley, with Phil Maton, that veteran experience. But I would love to see Riley O'Brien in some late inning opportunities and to see how that stuff plays in the higher leverage moments. I've loved what we've seen from Gordon Graceffo this year, from Matt Swanson. Ryan Fernandez has been much better as of late in the minors. And he's a guy that, right now there's no room for him. It would be nice to see what you have in him. So I think that like I said, at this point, the pros outweigh the cons, and it's just time to move on if you're not going to be bringing these guys back in 2026, excuse me.
Don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I think I speak for the fan here when I say, to me, this is where some frustration can come in, right? Because you're trying to walk this tightrope of winning is the culture. We believe in winning baseball, but at the same time, how do we build for the future? And to me, where I disagree with you on this is, let's go back to the Blues comment you made. Think about how valuable next year it's going to be. Next year's playoff run is with a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud getting experience. With a guy like him playing hard minutes, playing in the trenches, playing in the playoffs, I understand, man, moving Ryan Helsley, but let me ask you this. I guess maybe this is, I don't know, maybe we're going off track of our notes, but what else is new? What a way to introduce them. We lose our notes every now and then. When I say we, I say me. But ultimately, is your return for Ryan Helsley going to benefit you next season or 2 or 3 years from now? Because to me, I'm interested in what's going to benefit us over the next 25, 26, not 26, 27, 28, 29. What would you say to those naysayers?
The Cardinals system is so depleted from them getting away from being one of the best farm systems in baseball. It is still so far away. It's taken steps in the right direction, and it's going to continue, right, with Chaim Bloom as the new president of baseball operations and all the guys that they've brought in for player development. It's going to continue to improve, but it's not there yet. It's not there yet. And I know that we want to get into this mindset of we're thinking solely about 2026 and about winning for 2026. I'll say this: if the Cardinals are to add, and we might talk about this a little bit later, certainly the upcoming episode. If the Cardinals are to add, they should be looking at a young, controllable starting pitcher, and obviously buying teams likely aren't going to I don't think you're going to get that for a Ryan Helsley, but perhaps you could get that for some of your young, controllable bats that you have in the surplus. Who knows if that's a direction they go in, right? But I think it's something that you at least are making calls about, engaging curiosity on. But like I said, the Cardinals system is still depleted enough to where the conversation has to be, well, what can you get for Ryan Helsley, regardless of where they're at? Now, would I prefer for someone to be in AA, AAA, that you could kind of get in the mix there with the Quinn Matthews, the Tekoa Robies, that level of starting pitcher, to where you feel like, yeah, they're in the mix, to where like I could see them being up with the club at some point in 2026. Yeah, I would prefer that, but the system is still not back to where it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to where the Cardinals should feel comfortable that they can let the free agent market do its thing. The Cardinals are not going to be one of the top spenders in baseball. We know that, but we know that they're also going to rely on the system. And the system has to be a strength in order for the Cardinals to be successful in Major League Baseball. Now they're going to have a balance of both, but the system is not there yet if you're not going to continue to press in to the free agent market. So I understand the question, right? Because but I would argue that the Blues are way more in like, okay, it's right now. It's right now. They are going to be in the mix for this upcoming season. They have pieces still that are coming up that are almost there. And the Cardinals aren't quite to that level yet. Let's say they're a step or two behind the Blues. It's hard to compare the two, right? Because they're so different. But if you're trying to compare them, the Cardinals, I think, a step or two behind still, as far as getting back to being a championship contender.
Okay, I hear you. I mean, I feel like we're going to continue to talk about Helsley being traded. Just really quick, out of curiosity, if we're going to go down the scenario, let's say you're right here. Let's say you're right on it, man. The Cardinals, they're going to sell. Is there also a scenario where they buy? Like, can we give any of the fans hope here? Is there somebody out there that's young that can come in who I mean, I'm not going to go hockey here because you're right. Blues and Cardinals, they're two different sports, two different teams here. But is there somebody young that maybe I can't think of? Because I mean, our bullpen is full of young.
Sure.
I mean, there is a surplus of that. But I'm even thinking like, man, I would love to move a Helsley, but I like some seasoned vets in my bullpen. So I'm all about, hey, if we were to go out and get a dude in his later 20s who can be in the pen, I'm for that take. I know I'm in the minority there because it's not sexy, and we already have a surplus in our bullpen. But to me, if you move Helsley, you're going to have a significant gap that you need to fill. So as you think about that, I'm sure that's not your take, but who is somebody the Cardinals would buy on?
Yeah, I mean, right. If the mindset is for 2025 and for winning in 2025, you're not trading Ryan Helsley. But the reality is based off of what we just saw in Arizona, are you confident enough that this team can take the gamble of potentially not trading out and getting the return for Ryan Helsley, and then all of a sudden you don't make the playoffs? Your starting pitching continues to fall off the wagon like it has. All of a sudden, boy, you look terrible if you are John Mozeliak. I mean, what a disservice to the future of this team it would be if you don't plan on re-signing Ryan Helsley and you don't feel confident in the product and what you've seen to the point that you don't think that you're going to be a playoff team. It's way too big of a risk, in my opinion, to not move on from Ryan Helsley with the hope of that the Cardinals get into the postseason. And right now, it's a hope that continues to get smaller and smaller every single day, regardless of how these next however many games go, because your starting pitching has not been consistent. So there is a world in which the Cardinals could buy Brandon, but it looks like getting unique. Here's the thing: because the Cardinals are in this weird spot where they're transitioning leadership, John Mozeliak in his final year president of baseball operations, Chaim Bloom taking over in that spot in the upcoming season. It's weird because Bloom is there for consultation, but Mo's the one that makes the final calls. And it kind of hamstrings Chaim Bloom, right, to where he doesn't have total say, total control as to how things go at this deadline. So, and maybe that is even with decisions for upcoming seasons, right? It just gets messy when there's two guys at the helm leading things. It's not to say they can't work in unison. They'll have to work in unison to a certain extent, looking at what they'll get in return if they are to sell. There is a way to add. It's going to depend, right, on how much Chaim Bloom is in the mix. It's going to depend on if their view of certain pieces, whether it be a lot of the surplus that they have, is similar, and how a lot of the prospects that they have are similar. You know, I mean, the Cardinals have 3 catching prospects in the top 6 in their system. Ronel Rodriguez, Leonardo Bernal, and Jimmy Crooks are all in the top 6 in their system, and they're all at different levels right now. Not all of them are going to be able to catch, especially when you consider Ivan Herrera, who knows, maybe his catching days are over, and Pedro Paez, right? There is so much at that position. You're not going to need to trade to have all of those pieces. Perhaps if they look at some of those guys in similar fashion, maybe you're looking at moving on and bringing in some young pitching talent. You ask for young pitching talent. Off the top of my head, I don't have any names. I've heard Taj Bradley as someone that had been mentioned as far as a guy that potentially you're looking a little bit more of a one-on-one or a young piece for a young piece kind of situation. I don't have a bunch of names right now. We'll maybe focus on that a little bit more in the upcoming episode. There is a world in which it can happen, but unless Mozeliak and Bloom are looking at this all and viewing a lot of these guys in similar fashion, I think you're going to have a really hard time coming up with this is how with a big trade being made. I think it's fairly safe to say that the Cardinals are going to be looking to move on from those 3 back-end relievers, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's all that the Cardinals do at this deadline because of the weird spot that they are in the transition of leadership.
Trade deadline day is 9 days away. That is the number, 9
As
days
we record.
as we record. Pardon my French. Listen, with that said, it's rumor mill time, and we love it. We feast on it like a Ponderosa buffet, and we're going to talk about some names, and we're going to talk about some people that we see in different tiers of who is most likely, who is not as likely to get traded. Some players that are on the roster. We're going to name some names when we come back. You are listening and watching and meditating on the Lou Sports Talk podcast on STL Sports Central. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Lou Sports Talk podcast on STL Sports Central. As mentioned, all content here on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Ethan Hannaford and Brandon Gallegos as we continue on with our trade deadline conversation. What we are going to be doing now is we have a bunch of Cardinal players' names listed into several different tiers of the likelihood in which they get traded or even being shopped, right, at this upcoming trade deadline. The different tiers, starting from high to low: highly likely, decent chance, 50-50, not likely, and untouchable. And I even have a not worth mentioning conversation. So, but the main 5, right, are those 5. We're going to kind of bounce around here a little bit. We're going to have some conversation. We're going to debate, discuss our thoughts on who fits in to what tiers and why they do. Brandon, I think we should probably take this more so like notable players by notable players rather than by tiers. And then if there's anyone we miss on, we can throw them at the end and list out our tiers. Does that sound good?
I agree. I like that audible. Good stuff.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So let's go ahead. And I think it's fair that we start off with the one that has consumed the majority of our conversation just to get it done. And that is, as you see, the title of the episode, Ryan Helsley. Will he get traded? Maybe a little bit of a sneak peek, but maybe, or it was a sneak peek. You probably already have an idea on where I stand on this. Maybe you do for Brandon as well. But as far as tiers go, for Ryan Helsley, I put him in the highly likely tier category. If the Cardinals do not at this point trade away Ryan Helsley, then I think as far as recent memory goes, the disdain, the hatred, it's probably already too far gone, but the disdain and the hatred for John Mozeliak will be even that much more extreme because at this, Cardinals fans are smart. They get it, right?
Yeah.
They understand what the team is playing for, what the purpose is. And at this point, when you look at a guy that could get as much back as Ryan Helsley could at the trade deadline, a guy that has the pedigree, the quality of stuff that he has, in my opinion, there's just no reason that Ryan Helsley should not be getting traded at this deadline. Now, I've been saying this for a long time. Even back, we've had these conversations back in the offseason when we discussed why he wasn't traded then. Ryan Helsley has to get traded at this trade deadline. If there was a category higher than highly likely, I'm putting him in it. Put it right down on the board. Ryan Helsley gets traded. Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah, it has to happen. I mean, if you're looking to invest in the future of this team, I think if you were to line up 100 people, 99 of them would say we know this team is not going to contend for a World Series. I think the place that nobody wants to be in modern day sports is the muddy middle, right in the middle. You don't suck, but you're really not that great. As my grandpa would say, you're fun enough to watch for 6 innings, but not 8. Like you want to tune in. And here's the thing: Ryan Helsley is an asset right now for you. You don't have many of those right now. You have players that are liabilities. You have players like an Eric Fetty. You have a struggling pitcher in Miles Michaelis. You have some other players that are liabilities for you. You have an asset in Ryan Helsley. Business decisions are not known to be fun. They're not at times. They're not even known to be popular. This one wouldn't be from a winning perspective, but from a purely, hey, what can we get back? I mean, think about this right now. We're going to talk about younger players more of the return they can get. Ryan Helsley, to me, probably gets the best return right now.
Oh, not even close.
Not because, well, and think about this, like, young talent is. So when we're going to talk about names like Jordan Walker, Lars Newbar, Nolan Gorman, maybe a couple years ago, this is a totally different story of the return. But right now, Ryan Helsley's the guy. And you have desperate teams. You have desperate teams. You have teams that are overachieving. You have teams that are like the Tigers who are running away with things. Pause real quick. How crazy was it to see Javier Baez back at the World Series All-Star game?
Dude, like a blast from the
What
past.
the heck? I was in high school. Like this is it was awesome. But the bottom line is we're not those teams, but those teams that are up there at the top, they're desperate. We're back in, slam the door shut, pitching. Ryan Helsley's that. Here's my craziest thing. I think you could get somebody back that's playing on your everyday roster too to help supplement. I don't think you're going to get the same return back on your 2025 roster right now, but I still think you can get someone who's at least going to play in the major leagues. My point is, I don't think you're going to get high A-ball guys back for Ryan Helsley.
I agree.
That's my point. You're going to get proven talent back. Thank you for agreeing with me. If you're just tuning in, please don't get used to it. I try to disagree with Ethan as much as I can.
I'm impressed at how well you played devil's advocate earlier because you had me completely fooled. You freaking jerk. You had me thinking these people are going to hate us.
Oh, I love it.
You heard it right there. Ryan Helsley in the highly likely tier to be traded. Both Brandon and I agreeing on that. Let's go ahead and let's move to the next. I think probably the next guy that you're looking at as far as relief pitchers go, setup men, and has a potential to be one of the higher sought out guys here this upcoming deadline, and that is Phil Maton, a guy that the Cardinals signed very late in spring training, $2 million deal. Ended up being the only signing that the Cardinals made, but boy, did it end up being a phenomenal one for John Mozeliak, because now I'd be shocked if this is a guy that there's any you're looking to bring back in 2026. But the return that you could get for him it has the potential to be really nice from a sense of for what you're paying for him. He's very cheap when you're looking at it from the GM right on the other side. This is a guy, in my opinion, that is also in the highly likely tier because of, like I said, veteran experience, a quality setup man, has been dominant for a large part of the year, does not give up home runs. I think he's given up one this year, and he's very affordable. So this one seems like a no-brainer to me as well, Brandon. Phil Maton in the highly likely tier.
I would kindly disagree with you, and we're off.
There it is.
I have him in the decent chance. 32 years old. Do I think you're going to get something back for him? Sure, you might. Here's where I think being around the wild card chase does play a factor. Because if you're trading Phil Maton, you are completely saying, we're done this year. You're okay finishing 8, 9, 10 games back in the wild card. I don't know if I see this front office saying that. I think Ryan Helsley's an asset. How much are we going to really get back for Phil Maton that we will see on a major league ball field in the next 3 years? Nobody can answer that. We can try to predict. A 32-year-old cheap reliever sounds like a guy who's a good fit on a team that is trying to scrape by. To me, I mean, what are you going to – I mean, I get it. What you want to do is give some younger guys in the bullpen a chance. I mean, that is the thing. Bring up the kids, right? Let's go. Let's get after it. I mean, here's a guy. I mean, let's look at this. I mean, 91st percentile in K rate. I mean, what is going on? This guy's got swing and miss stuff. You move a Helsley who also, I mean, makes guys whiff. I mean, like you read about, if you move a Ryan Helsley and then you move a Phil Maton, to me, what you're saying is, hey, you know what? We're okay with falling back in the wild card, and we're going to give young guys a chance. I don't know if we're there. Is Phil Maton that big of an asset to you, Ethan?
I mean, I think you have to look at the demand, right, of the relief market. It's not. It doesn't matter how I view him. It's how the league views him, and how the league views him is a veteran guy that's super cheap, like I said, and has a 2.48 ERA this year and 36 and a third innings thrown. He's walked 15 batters, struck out 47, and he has a WHIP that is under 1.2. Pretty damn good. I mean, there's going to be a lot of interest in him. I'm not saying that you're going to get back for him what you get back for Ryan Helsley, but it would not surprise me if a lot of teams are calling for him, because this type of player is sought out after. And if the Cardinals, we talked about it on last week's episode, there's still probably close to 20 teams that are potentially in the mix to be buying and adding. Now, not all those teams are going to be all in, but a handful of them will, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Maton ends up being, because of the other factors as well, veteran guy, cheap, but for him to be able to put up the numbers that he has this year, why would you not want him? So he's like I said, he's not at the level that Ryan Helsley is, but that's why I disagree with you. I think that the return potential is going to be too high. And if you really wanted him, you could go and re-sign him again in the offseason. Like, it's not like this guy's going to be a guarantee to whoever he gets traded to be getting an extension from them. I bet this is a guy that's probably on the market again. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with my side there. But either way, it sounds like we both think that it's still in favor that there's a good chance he's going to get traded.
Sure. Yeah, man. We'll have to see what happens. But to me, man, and I want a big return, or I'm hanging on to him. That's all I have to say. Somebody better overpay.
The third piece of the three bullpen guys that have been consistently mentioned because they're on expiring contracts is Steven Matz. Brandon, where are you putting Steven Matz as far as your trade tier?
Here's where I'm at. I'm more 50-50. Do playoff teams trust him? I mean, here's a guy that's got some serious injury history. Like, unfortunate, right? Like, you don't wish that upon anybody. Unfortunate for sure, but you can't deny it. Does a playoff team trust to go get him? You can't tell me that's not in the back of some front office's mind. And because of that, the return's going to be too low for me to make a move on him.
That's not in my opinion, like a crazy out of this world terrible take, right? I think that you look at the last couple of years, and a lot of the injuries have come as a starter. I think that he's obviously throwing a lot less innings, a lot less pitches than he has in the past. Perhaps it's allowing for him to take care of himself a little bit better. But at the same time, it is a guy that has the ability, if you needed to ramp him up for whatever reason, you could. I think that that's something that could also gauge some interest because of that at this trade deadline. I don't have him in my highly likely tier, but I do have him in the decent chance. He's going to be a little bit more expensive than Phil Maton for sure, a little bit more than Ryan Helsley, $11 million a year, a half year left. I mean, so you're going to probably pay him around $5 million the rest of the year. So I would agree, definitely not at the level of Ryan Helsley, Phil Maton, in my opinion. But I still do think that there's a good chance that the Cardinals are going to be shopping him, and that there's going to be calls for a guy like this. Let's keep it moving here. Next guy, I'm going to throw this one out there. We've mentioned three relievers. Let's stick with the reliever group. Jojo Romero. What are you thinking?
Jojo!
Big Poppy, what are you thinking?
Jojo Romero. I have him in a spot where I actually see a scenario where this guy gets moved. I really do. Here's a guy. I mean, here's where I'm at. like it's funny. I'm talking about Phil Maton. Well, what's going to be the return? Is the return going to be on Jojo Romero? To me, you have a left-hander that's expendable, and it's different because he's throwing left-handed. Here's a guy that, I mean, he's been more than a specialist for you. At times, he's been more than a specialist for you, and to me, he's going to be valuable. So switch the takes, Ethan. To me, I think what you think about Phil Maton. Obviously, Jojo Romero has not had the same season as him. That's what I think for Jojo Romero. People are wanting left-handed pitchers. I see a decent chance.
If the Cardinals decide that they are going to shop Jojo Romero, he will get more than Phil Maton. And here's why I say that.
Mm-hmm.
Since the start of May, his ERA is 0.4. You said it. He's a lefty. He's not extremely young at this point, but he has another year of team control. And teams are going to look at that and they're going to say, "Oh, I like that. A guy that I can have for another year. I'm not just trading for 2025." Teams are going to like that. And in large part, the product that they've gotten from Jojo Romero here the last I guess pretty much all of this year. I know it was a bumpy start, but then a good chunk of last year too. He's saying it's enough to where you're like, okay, you're confident that it can continue at a strong rate. He's made some adjustments this past year, early in the year, in order to be the dominant guy that he has been. If the Cardinals decide to make Jojo Romero available, I think he has the potential to get more than Phil Maton because of the reasons that I just stated. I put him in the decent chance category with Matz, but for a different reason. It's all really dependent on if the Cardinals decide that they're willing to move on from him. I guarantee this, they're going to listen to offers. In my opinion, they'd be crazy not to.
Yeah. No, you this time of year you have to listen.
Brandon, go ahead and throw out the next name.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go to the rotation, shall we? Shall we take a little walk to the rotation? Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray. Here's a guy. A +4 ERA on the year. A guy that's always been a pitch to contact guy, but unfortunately has pitched too much contact. He can get some Ks, but I mean, you think about his early days in Oakland. He was a guy who could get some ground balls, especially with the repertoire of pitches that he throws. He was a guy that could.
Respectfully, I'm going to disagree. Sure, you could ground ball. I don't. Brandon, you look through the numbers, and I don't think I'm going to agree with you. This guy's
not a ground ball guy. Not even early in his career.
I mean, no. I mean, 205 strikeouts in 19, but I mean, 183 in his second year in the league. Earlier in the year was a little bit more of a contact guy while the velo was getting up. He's gone through stretches of it. In 2022, he only struck out 117. So he's gone through stretches. But, I mean, when you looked at why the Cardinals added Sonny Gray to start off the year, and in large part it was, or not this period, last year's, because he was going to bring more strikeouts to you. But either way, that's not the important part. Continuing on, Sonny Gray, you mentioned an ERA just above 4, and a guy that has been in large part pretty good this year, excluding probably 4-5 blow-up starts. I mean, this was a guy that had a 3.7 probably ERA before allowing, 9 runs in his last outing against Arizona. So, in large part, it's been a pretty good product. Where do you have Sonny Gray? Which trade tier do you have him in?
Yeah, I have him in the not likely. You hang on to a number one guy, and that's what he is right now. Whether he's that somewhere else doesn't really matter. He's a number one here. You don't move him. To me, he stays.
I have him in the not likely as well, and while that is an important reason, the main reason is that he has a no trade clause. So anywhere that the Cardinals may be wanting to send him, Sonny Gray has to agree to it. And you know what? If you've paid attention at all, you would know that Sonny Gray has a family. He's got a couple of boys. They're always running around the clubhouse. You see them all the time when you're down there. And family man. And this is a guy that obviously winning is always important. But to me, he's never been the guy that's like, I need to be where the winning is going on. 4 years in Oakland to start his career off. He spent a year with the Yankees, but had his struggles. 3 years in Cincinnati, a couple of years in Minnesota. He's never been on that the dominant team, right? So to me, I look at Sonny Gray. I look at a guy that just a few months ago said he didn't want to be traded when he was asked by John Mozeliak in the offseason. And I say this is a guy that's found his home in St. Louis, enjoys it here, and in large part has had a lot of success. The fans like him. I would be really surprised if Sonny Gray ends up moving on or saying that he wants to get traded. I'm putting him in the not likely category as well. Let's go ahead and let's touch on Nolan Arenado. Let's touch on the third baseman, Brandon. Where do you see Nolan Arenado, and which trade tier he could be in?
Yeah, here's another guy. No trade clause, right? Here's another one. NTC, baby. You look at this guy in general. If you were to summarize what I think the Cardinals should do this deadline, it's moving Arenado and it's moving Helsley. Because that, to me, that's going to give you the quickest return right now. Those other guys are great. That's fine. But I like the JoJos of the world. Steven Matz, whatever. I hope he continues to stay healthy the rest of the year. All these guys. But to me, it's Helsley, Arenado. Here are guys that are most likely going to be on their way out the door at some point over the next few years. You move them. While Arenado, you're not going to get the best return to me. Somebody's going to want him. Somebody's going to want him on the hot corner. A team that's a playoff team. To me, you move Arenado.
So what tier do you have him in?
I have him in right now. I have him in the 50-50 simply because of the no trade clause.
Okay. So I put him in not likely, and a large reason is the no trade clause. Defensively, he's back to what he has been in large part in his career.
Yep.
If he continues on at this pace, he will win another Gold Glove, as deserved. The bat is not there anymore, not to the level of which it used to be. Obviously, we all know that. This is a guy that continues to have struggles offensively. So, and when you look at what he's to be paid here these next couple of years, I don't know if you're going to find a suitor, even if the no trade clause. It was rumored to be 5 teams in the offseason. He said no to Houston. Now, there are a couple of teams that are banged up as far as third basemen go. The Astros are going to be without Isaac Paredes for an extended period of time. The Dodgers are without Max Muncy right now. So maybe you could make something work, but this is not a rental. This is a guy that's going to be around for a couple of years. And, long term, the Dodgers still don't need a guy. The Astros still don't need a guy. So I don't know if Nolan Arenado's no trade clause is going to change enough to where all of a sudden there's teams that could be interested that Arenado is willing to move on from. We'll have to wait and see. I put him in the not likely for that reason. Like you said, the main reason is the no trade clause. I just have him a tier lower.
To me, teams are going to kick that can down the road. It's still a guy that's. There were some rumors about clubhouse stuff. Here's a guy that's still used to being a top dog, and defensively he is. Does LA and Houston care about money?
That's a good question. Good point. This is a guy also that is a great clubhouse guy. He's proven to be a great clubhouse guy in the past year. There were some question marks, I know, about, he was never really that vocal leader. But, I mean, there's guys that have talked in the clubhouse. I've heard it that have talked about how great he has been and being around. You've seen him really just, I think, continue to take on that role more so. But you're right in the sense of there are a lot of guys that you could afford to have more Nolan Gorman at third base. You could afford to eventually have a spot potentially when JJ Weatherholt's ready to go. As you continue to try and get younger, it makes sense in some ways. It's just going to depend on if you're going to be able to find a suitor that Arenado is good to go with. That's what it's going to end up going down to here. We're running out of time. Let's go ahead, Brandon, and let's run through the remainder of our tiers, and then we'll go ahead and wrap from there. But I do want to hear the notables, right, of your full tiers of who you think for the Cardinals could be, potentially being traded, untouchables, all that good stuff.
To me, Jordan Walker is an untouchable. You got to give this guy more of the leeway here. I get it. The expectations have been high. It's been slower than we thought. Yes, yes, and yes to all of that. You can't move Jordan Walker yet. Lars Nootbaar, I mean, here's a guy that's battling injury right now anyways. To me, it's not this season. He's a not likely for me. And a Nolan Gorman out of the three is who I could see getting moved the most. But I have to stick with my Arenado take. If Arenado's getting moved, I see Gorman not getting moved. Therefore, I'm putting him in the not likely as well.
All righty. And then my only four that I had in highly likely or decent chance were the four relief pitchers. I threw Lars Nootbaar in the 50-50 category. I do agree, though, the longer he's injured and the more, this looks to be something that's going to take a little while to get over, the less likely it becomes. I'd be keeping a hard eye on that in the offseason, though. There's just so much surplus, and I imagine there's going to be some interest in him. I also put Thomas Ajacey in the 50-50 category. The reason I threw him in there is I could see him being a piece if the Cardinals did look to try and add something at this deadline as far as a controllable piece. I think he's something – he's not going to be the main piece, but he could be an accent piece. I just don't know if the Cardinals long-term have a spot for him on this 26-man roster. And I think that it would make sense potentially, right, to sell on it maybe when there is some enough upside still from his prospect days. I don't know if there is still. As far as other not likelies go, I put Miles Michaelis because of the no trade clause. Wilson Contreras I put in not likely. Burleson is in not likely. I put Nolan Gorman in not likely. Potentially something that we see in the offseason. I put Jordan Walker in not likely. My untouchables are Brendan Donovan and Ivan Herrera first and foremost. Mason Wynn, Victor Scott. I put Liberatore in there. I also put Michael McGreevy in there as well. So, a fully loaded first episode on the video podcast on STL Sports Central's YouTube page. We appreciate all of you joining us for it. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button below. We're going to have all of our upcoming podcasts right here. And then be sure to go and follow us on social media as well. We are on Instagram and Twitter, X at Lou Sports Talk _. I repeat, at Lou Sports Talk _. You see it there in the bottom right corner of your screen. And then we're also on Facebook as well at the Lou Sports Talk. Brandon, any final thoughts here before we wrap?
No, shout out to all the people that are on Facebook, though. We love you, and hang on to that, boomers. May it live on. No, this is a fun pod. What a way to start it off. Episode 70. Excited for what's to come.
Just a little over a week until the trade deadline. Still a lot of question marks as to what it's going to look like. Perhaps that market will have set a little more by the time of our upcoming episode. Plenty more always to discuss. But for now, that's a wrap.